My name is Marie, and I am 61 years old. After my husband Harold passed, I thought moving in with my only son James would be the final harbor for my shattered heart. I imagined quiet years of family meals and finding peace. I never dreamed that lovely house would become a polite prison, or that my own child would deliver a cruel ultimatum, become his wife's unpaid housekeeper, or get out. Before I tell you how I smiled and walked away, I wonder where you are listening from. Are you in your own kitchen, or maybe on a long drive? Let me know in the comments below, and if you are ready for a story about finding your footing when the ground gives way, please hit that subscribe button. The silence in our old house after Harold was gone was a physical thing. It sat in his armchair. It hovered over his side of the bed. We were married for 38 years, good years, built on inside jokes and shared coffee in the morning. His heart attack was so sudden, the doctor said it was likely he was gone before he hit the kitchen floor. I found him there. The grief was a deep cold, well I fell into every single day. My son James, my sweet boy, he called me every night. He lived a 3-hour flight away in a city I had never visited. "Mom, you cannot stay in that house alone," he would say, his voice full of a concern that felt like my only lifeline. Then about a year and a half after the funeral, he called with a new tone. "Mom, Chloe and I have been talking. We have this big house with a guest suite just sitting empty. We want you to come live with us, for good. You can sell the house, put the money away, and just be with family. You should not have to be lonely." I cried that night, but for the first time, they were not all tears of sadness. They felt like a release. He was throwing me a rope. I grabbed it with both hands. I sold our home. It was harder than I imagined, letting go of the garden Harold tended and the porch where we watched storms roll in. But I packed my life into a storage unit, keeping only what I thought I would need: my clothes, some photos, my favorite books, and the small porcelain dove Harold bought me on our 10th anniversary. I boarded the plane with a hopeful heart. James picked me up from the airport. He looked so handsome, so grown up. He hugged me tight. "This is going to be great, Mom," he whispered into my hair. Their house was stunning. All sharp angles, huge windows, and floors so clean they reflected the sky. It smelled like lemons and something else, something sterile. Chloe greeted me at the door. She was beautiful, like a woman from a magazine, with a smile that was perfectly even. "Marie, welcome," she said, air-kissing near my cheek. "We are so glad to have you." Her eyes, though they swept over me, my practical suitcase, my comfortable shoes. It was a quick assessment. I told myself I was being overly sensitive, a nervous old woman. The first week was a dance of learning the rules. The shoes went on a specific rack in the mudroom, never on the floor. Groceries were to be bought only from a particular organic market, and only the items on the shared digital list. If I used the last of the almond milk I had, to add it to the list immediately. I wanted to contribute to show my gratitude. So, on my third night, I made Harold's pot roast, a recipe that took all afternoon, filling the sleek, quiet kitchen with the smell of garlic and herbs. James ate 2 helpings, his eyes closed. "Oh man, Mom, this tastes like childhood." Chloe took a small bite, chewed thoughtfully, and set her fork down. "It is very rich," she said. Then she looked at me. "When you are done, could you make sure the stovetop is completely clear of any grease? The induction cooktop stains so easily." I nodded, the warmth from James's compliment already cooling. Later, as I was scrubbing the pristine surface, I heard Chloe on the phone in the next room. Her voice was light conspiratorial. "Yeah, the mother-in-law is installed. It is actually convenient. Free cooking and cleaning." James was so worried about her being sad, but this works for everyone. I froze, the sponge in my hand. The words "free cooking and cleaning" echoed. I finished the dishes and went to my room, which was beautiful and quiet, and felt suddenly very much like a guest room. The notes began to appear. Not angry notes, just instructional. They were always on that crisp, white paper. Marie, the delicates need to be hand-washed in cold water and laid flat to dry on the rack in the laundry room. The dryer will ruin them. Another, the living room floor needs a proper polish before 10 a.m. tomorrow. I have a collaboration video to film in that space. I became an expert in their home. I knew which cleaner left no streaks on the enormous windows. I knew the exact pressure needed on the French press for Chloe's afternoon coffee. James worked long hours, and when he was home, he was often tired, distracted by his phone. I tried to talk to him one Saturday morning when Chloe was at a spin class. "James, honey, I love helping, but sometimes I feel like I am on a very detailed schedule." He put his hand on my shoulder. "Mom, Chloe just likes things a certain way. She is a perfectionist. It is her brand. Just helping out around the house is a huge weight off my shoulders, honestly. Don't make it a thing, okay?" He said, "Don't make it a thing," like I was a teenager complaining about chores. The disappointment was a sharp little stone in my stomach. Then came the blogger brunch. Chloe told me she was hosting 10 people for a brand immersion lunch and needed my help. I spent 2 days preparing miniature quiches, smoked salmon pinwheels, a beautiful fruit platter. The day of, I was not a host. I was staff. I was to refill drinks, pass trays, and then, as Chloe put it, just sort of blend into the background when they started filming. One of her friends, a woman with very glossy lips, looked me up and down as I offered her a napkin. "Is this your new house manager, Chloe? So smart to hire someone mature?" Chloe laughed a tinkling sound. "Oh no, this is James's mother. She is staying with us and just loves to keep busy." The woman gave me a slow, pitying smile. I felt my face grow hot. I spent the rest of the event in the kitchen listening to their loud, confident voices talk about engagement and aesthetic. After they left, a wreck of dirty plates and glasses awaited me. Chloe popped her head in. "Everything needs to be spotless before bedtime, Marie. The cleaning crew comes Monday, and I do not want them to see a mess." She was gone before I could respond. That night, my back aching from hours of standing, I knocked on their bedroom door. James was already asleep. Chloe came out wrapped in a silk robe. "Yes." I took a deep breath. "Chloe, I am happy to help with family events, but today felt different. I felt like hired help and not even introduced properly." She crossed her arms, her expression cool. "Marie, let us be clear. In this household, everyone contributes. James and I work very hard to maintain this lifestyle and this home. You are not paying rent. You are not paying for groceries. Contributing labor is a fair exchange. Do not think of yourself as a guest here. Think of yourself as part of the household ecosystem." The word ecosystem hung in the air. I went back to my room, the door clicking shut with a finality that scared me. Where could I go? I had no home. The money from my house sale was my fragile safety net, not enough to buy anything new, just enough to exist for a little while, if I was careful. The loneliness that night was worse than anything I had felt in my empty house after Harold died. This was a loneliness surrounded by people. I started to notice things. James seemed more stressed, quieter. He and Chloe would have hushed tense conversations in their office that stopped when I walked by. One evening, I was bringing laundry upstairs, and their door was slightly ajar. I heard Chloe's voice sharp. "Cannot just keep spending on that equipment, James. The credit line is almost maxed. You need to talk to your mother about contributing more. She eats, she uses utilities." James's voice weary. "She does contribute. She does everything around here." "That is not a financial contribution," Chloe snapped. I backed away, my heart pounding. So it was about money. Their beautiful, glossy life had cracks. The breaking point, or what I thought was the breaking point, happened on a Tuesday. I was dusting the living room shelves. A small, modern vase, a twisted glass thing, was sitting too close to the edge. My elbow brushed it as I reached for a book. It toppled and shattered on the hardwood floor. I gasped. It was one of Chloe's pieces. She came running, her face a mask of horror. My vase. That was from the Eder series. Do you have any idea what that cost? She was nearly hysterical. I am so sorry, Chloe. It was an accident. I will replace it, I said, my voice trembling. With what? She spat. You have no income, James. James came in, looking from the shards to my stricken face. Instead of calming her, he turned to me. Mom, you have to be more careful. Chloe's things are important to her work. This is really bad. In that moment, I did not see my son. I saw a man afraid of his wife's anger. Something in me shifted from hurt to determination. I needed an exit, even a small one. I saw a help wanted sign in the window of a little family-owned bakery a mile away. I applied and was hired for 3 mornings a week, cash in hand. It felt wonderful. The smell of yeast, the warm greetings from the regulars, the simple act of earning my own few dollars. When I told James and Chloe over dinner, the silence was thick. Chloe put her fork down. You got a job at a bakery? She said it like I had announced I was joining the circus. James' people will see her. They will think we cannot support your mother. How does that look for my brand, a mother-in-law who has to work a minimum wage job? James looked pained. Mom, is that really necessary? We provide everything for you here. It is not about necessity, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. It is about having somewhere to go, something that is mine. 2 days later, James came to me, his expression grim. Chloe is really upset. The job? It sends the wrong message. We need you to quit, for the sake of family harmony. The stone in my stomach turned to lead. I quit the next day. The final ultimatum came after I refused a request. My arthritis was flaring up, a deep ache in my lower back. Chloe had a pile of blouses that absolutely had to be hand-pressed for an event the next day. It was already 9 p.m. I told her I was in too much pain, that they could surely be done in the morning. She did not argue. She just gave me a long, cold look and walked away. An hour later, James knocked on my door. He did not come in. He stood in the hallway, his shoulders tense. Mom, we need to talk. Seriously. My heart started to race. Chloe feels like you are not being a team player. Our lifestyle, it requires support. So here are your options. He took a breath, unable to meet my eyes fully. Option 1, you fully embrace supporting this family. You help Chloe happily, proactively, without complaint. You see it as your role here. Option 2? He paused. If you are unhappy with that arrangement, then you are free to leave. We will be fine. He finally looked at me, and in his eyes, I saw not malice, but a profound cowardice. He had been given a script by his wife, and he was reading it. In that moment, the last thread holding my heart together snapped. I did not sleep. I sat in the dark by the window, watching the moon trace a path across their perfectly manicured lawn. I thought of Harold. I could almost hear his voice, steady and kind. Marie, you are the strongest person I know. You just forget it sometimes. I thought of my parents, hardworking people who taught me dignity was non-negotiable. By the time the sky began to lighten, I was calm. A terrible, clear calm. I packed a single suitcase. Not the large one I came with, but a smaller, older one. I put in my clothes, my photos, the porcelain dove, and my important papers. I called my cousin Linda in Florida as the sun rose. Linda, it is Marie. I need to leave. Today. She asked no questions. God bless her. The guest room is made up. I will email you a ticket for the 2 p.m. flight. Get in a cab and come home. Home. The word made my throat tight. I showered, dressed in my best traveling clothes, and wheeled my suitcase to the top of the stairs. I could hear the television downstairs. I took a deep breath and descended. James and Chloe were on the sofa drinking coffee. They looked up startled by the sight of the suitcase. "Mom, where are you going?" James asked, confusion on his face. I smiled then. It was not a happy smile, but it was genuine. It was the smile of a woman who has finally seen the map. "I have made my choice, James. I am taking option 2. I walked to the front door, my hand on the handle. I turned back to look at my son one more time. "You know your father once told you that family is not about power, it is about harbor. Today, you sank my ship." I opened the door. The morning air was cool and fresh. I did not look back. I got into the waiting cab I had called, gave the driver the airport name, and watched their perfect house disappear around the corner. The flight was a blur. Linda was at the airport in Florida, her arms wide open. She hugged me so hard, I thought my ribs would crack. "You are staying as long as you want," she said into my hair. Her house was cluttered, colorful, and alive. There were plants everywhere, and the smell of coffee permanently in the air. For the first 2 days, I just sat on her sun porch crying from sheer exhaustion and relief. I was out. The 3rd day, Linda said, "Enough moping, we are going out." She took me to a little place called The Final Chapter, a combination bookstore and cafe. The bell jingled as we walked in, and the smell of old paper and espresso wrapped around me like a blanket. A man with kind eyes and silver hair looked up from behind the counter. "Linda, and you must be Marie." It was Frank, a friend from Linda's college days. We had met once decades ago at a wedding. We talked that afternoon, really talked about books. We loved about losing spouses, about starting over, when you thought your story was already written. A week later, Frank mentioned he was looking for someone to help out a few days a week. Just to mind the shop, recommend books to customers, maybe run the register. "I need someone who knows that a customer asking for a good book might need an adventure, or a comfort, or an escape," he said, looking right at me. Linda nudged me. I was terrified, but I heard myself say I could try it. The first day was awkward. I fumbled with the cash register, but an elderly woman came in looking for a gift for her granddaughter, and we talked for 20 minutes. I sold her To Kill a Mockingbird and a book of poetry. When she left with a smile, Frank gave me a quiet nod. It was a small victory, but it was mine. James called. His voice was frantic at first, then pleading. I was calm. "I am safe. I am well. We can talk when you understand why I left." I did not tell him where I was. Life began to take on a new, gentle rhythm. I worked at the bookstore Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. I started reading again for pleasure. I walked on the beach with Linda in the evenings. Frank and I began having coffee after closing time, talking about everything and nothing. The sharp, constant ache of humiliation began to soften into a dull scar. I was building something, however small, that belonged only to Marie. Meanwhile, from snippets I got from a mutual friend back home, James's life was unraveling. Without me as the shock absorber, the pressure between him and Chloe exploded. The house was constantly messy. Chloe refused to do what she called menial labor, but they could not afford a regular housekeeper with their strained finances. Their arguments became epic. James, forced to handle his own laundry and grocery shopping for the first time in years, began to see the real financial picture. He found hidden credit card statements, receipts for thousands of dollars in brand development equipment that never seemed to produce income. The carefully curated image Chloe presented to the world was a facade, and he was deeply in debt supporting it. The climax came 3 weeks after I left. After a massive fight where Chloe accused him of being unsupportive and holding her back, she packed 2 suitcases of her best clothes and equipment. "I need space to breathe, James. You and this house are suffocating me." She left to stay with a friend indefinitely. James was alone in the big, silent, dirty house. The reality crashed down on him. He had alienated his mother, the one person who loved him unconditionally, to appease a woman who saw him as a funding source and a prop. The weight of his own weakness, his cowardice, hit him with paralyzing force. He called Linda, his voice broken. Linda, please, I need to see my mom. I need to talk to her. I know I do not deserve it, but please. He showed up on a Thursday afternoon. I was helping a young man find a book on woodworking when the bell chimed. I looked up and saw my son standing in the doorway. He looked years older. His clothes were rumpled. His eyes were red-rimmed and desperate. He saw me, and his face crumpled. Frank from behind the counter gave me a subtle, questioning look. I nodded slightly. I will be right back, I said to the customer, and I walked toward the door. James just stood there, tears streaming down his face openly. Mom, he choked out. We went to a small table in the cafe corner. I brought him a glass of water. He could not stop crying at first. When he found his voice, the words tumbled out in a raw confession. I was wrong. I was so wrong. I was weak. I let her control everything because it was easier than fighting. I let her treat you like staff. I told you to leave your own family. I do not know who I became. He did not blame Chloe. He took full responsibility, and that more than anything told me his awakening was real. I miss Dad. I miss you. I have nothing left. She cleaned out the joint account. The house is a mess. And I have no one because I threw away the only person who ever loved me just for me. The pain in his voice was immense. I reached across the table and took his hand. My own tears fell then. James, I forgive you. His shoulders shook with a new wave of sobs. But, I continued softly, forgiveness is not the same as going back. I cannot go back to that house. My home is here now. I have a life here. It is a small life, but it is mine. I told him about the job, about Linda, about the peace I was slowly building. What you did, it broke a fundamental trust. That takes time to rebuild if it can be rebuilt at all. It starts with you building a life for yourself, James. A real one, not a showpiece for someone else. We talked for a long time. I told him about his father's lessons on integrity. He listened, really listened. I did not offer him money. I did not offer to fix his mess. But I offered him the truth and the fragile possibility of a new kind of relationship, one between two adults. That was 8 months ago. James found a small apartment. He started therapy. He got a financial advisor and is slowly, painfully digging out of the debt. He calls me every Sunday and we talk about his week, my week, nothing heavy. He visited last month and we went for a walk on the beach. He did not make any demands. He just said, I am glad you are happy, Mom. As for me, I still work at the final chapter. Frank and I are seeing each other, taking it slowly with a lot of laughter and quiet understanding. I have a book club with some women from the neighborhood. Some days the old hurt echoes, but it is faint. I learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself, and even for your child, is to walk away from disrespect. You teach people how to treat you by what you are willing to accept. And I finally decided to accept nothing less than basic human dignity. My story did not end when I walked out that door. It began again. And that is the greatest lesson of all. It is never too late to choose yourself. If this story resonated with you, if you have ever had to set a painful boundary with someone you love, I would be so grateful if you shared your own experience in the comments below. Let us support each other. If you found strength in Marie's journey, please give this video a like. It lets me know these stories matter. And if you are not yet subscribed, I invite you to join our community here. Hitting that subscribe button means you will not miss the next story of resilience and quiet courage. Thank you for listening, for being here, and for remembering that your own peace is worth protecting. Be kind to yourselves.